The war is still breathing in the soil. Cold fog clings to the broken fields of western Germany, sliding over collapsed fences and the skeletal remains of farmhouses. The morning air tastes of wet ash, of the metallic bite of spent gunfire. In the distance, a barn stands crooked against the pale sky, its roof sagging like an exhausted chest. Inside, 200 German soldiers, most barely older than boys, huddled together in the straw. Rainwater drips through a gap in the roof, beating a slow rhythm on a rusted milk pail. The sound echoes like a ticking clock. The children, because many of them are still children, flinch with each cold drop. Their uniforms are stiff with mud. Their cheeks are hollow. Their hands tremble not from fear alone, but from hunger so deep it feels like an invisible creature gnawing its way inward. A whispered voice breaks the silence. "Sie kommen?" Are they coming? Another voice answers, low and resigned. "Americano. Heute oder morgen." Americans. Today or tomorrow? A thin boy named Lucas pulls his coat tighter around himself. He is 15, though no one looking at him would guess more than 13. His ribs press visibly against the fabric. In his hands he clutches a tiny wooden horse, paint chipped, tail missing, saved from a bombed-out home he'll never return to. He thinks of his mother's last command before he was taken into the Hitler Youth Battalion. Be brave. Be loyal. Never let them shame you. He wonders if he already has. The barn doors rattle. A gasp sweeps through the prisoners. Some freeze. Some hide their faces. Some begin to pray. Footsteps. American. Puts crushing debris outside. A shadow crosses the gap beneath the door. For a moment even the wind stops breathing. Then the wooden doors creak open. Blinding light floods the barn, and the German boys, blinking like startled animals, brace for the cruelty they were promised since childhood. Instead, the Americans stand motionless in the doorway, uncertain, stunned, taken aback by the sight of 200 shaking, starved young prisoners packed into a collapsing barn like forgotten animals. Sergeant Daniel Carter, mud-streaked, weary, 28 years old, looks at the scene as if someone just punched the air from his lungs. "My God," he whispers. There, kids in the barn, soaked in silence, waits for what comes next. 2 days earlier, Lucas and the others marched across a landscape that no longer resembled a country, but a wound. The Reich had collapsed into itself like a dying star. Fields burned, houses lay shattered, entire forests were splintered into toothpicks. The smell, smoke, wet earth, rotting cattle, clung to their clothes like a curse. They walked under armed escort by the remnants of German officers who no longer pretended victory was possible. Their boots dragged, their eyes were empty, their orders hollow. Propaganda still clung to the boys, though, sticky, toxic, impossible to peel away so quickly. "You are to resist if captured," the captain barked, though even he lacked conviction. "Americans torture. They shoot deserters. They will make you slaves." Lucas swallowed these warnings the way he swallowed everything. Quietly, faithfully, fearfully, the boys whispered among themselves during the march. "They say Americans beat prisoners with rifle butts. I heard they cut off ears. My brother told me they starve you until you betray your country." Someone asked if they would see electric chairs. Lucas didn't know what an electric chair looked like, but the thought made his stomach twist. A diary entry from a boy named Emil, written that night on a torn scrap of paper. "We marched past a village today, or what used to be one. Only a single wall was left standing like a gravestone. I looked for people. There was no one. The silence felt like snow, cold and everywhere. They say the Americans will make us pay for this. I believe them. What else is left to believe?" That night they slept in the barn, without fire, without blankets, without hope. They fully expected the Americans to arrive as monsters. When Sergeant Carter steps into the barn, the first thing he notices is the smell, not sweat, not decay, something worse. Hunger. True hunger has its own scent, sour, sharp, metallic. It burns the back of his throat. For a moment he thinks of his little sister back home in Kansas, with her full cheeks and warm hands, and nausea rises unexpectedly. Private Jenkins mutters beside him, Jesus Christ. They're just kids. The Germans recoil instinctively, expecting the outburst to be followed by violence. Instead, Jenkins just stands there, jaw tight, eyes shining with disbelief. Sergeant Carter raises both hands slowly. "We're two noisy nists," he says in clumsy German. "We won't hurt you." The prisoners stare back, unblinking, suspicious, trembling. A small boy in the corner, Tobias, faints from fear or hunger. An American medic kneels beside him without hesitation. That is the first shock. Kindness. Simple, quiet, terrifying in its unfamiliarity. The Americans don't hit them, don't scream, don't point rifles at their faces. They bring water, actual water. Clear, cold, clean. Lucas holds the metal cup with both hands. His fingers tremble so violently the water spills onto his coat. He apologizes instinctively, choking on the words. Sergeant Carter gently steadies the cup. "Langsam," he murmurs, slowly. And for Lucas, the world tilts. He had steeled himself for cruelty, but this quiet civility is somehow more disturbing. The Americans cook stew over a field. Stove behind the barn. Real stew, thick, hot, fragrant. The smell alone makes some Germans cry potatoes, their soft sweetness filling the air, meat crumbly, rich, almost unreal. Onions, caramelizing into a golden haze. Lucas inhales the scent and nearly collapses. He hasn't smelled cooked onions since 1943. Inside the barn, whispers ripple. "They eat this every day." "No, impossible. This is for special holidays." "No, this is normal for them." When the Americans serve the food, the Germans eat slowly at first, then desperately, then shamefully, realizing their manners disintegrated long before their uniforms did. One prisoner, Otto, cries openly as he licks the bowl. "I used to feed my dog better than I've eaten in months." No one argues. The next day, an American soldier hands out bars of soap. Thick, heavy, white, smelling faintly of lavender. Lucas holds the bar as if it might disappear. He studies its smoothness, its weight. He turns it in his hands, almost afraid to use it. His diary entry that night. "I didn't know soap could have a smell. I didn't know my own skin could feel clean again. I didn't know an enemy could look at me without hatred. I don't know what to do with this feeling." Later, the soldiers set up a small radio outside. American music drifts through the broken barn window. Swing tunes, bright and brassy, alive with a world untouched by war. For the Germans, it is like hearing laughter in a graveyard. Some close their eyes and sway unconsciously. Some cover their ears, unable to bear the contrast. The sound becomes a mirror held up to their broken country, and the reflection is almost too cruel. That evening, Carter finds Lucas sitting alone behind the barn. The boy wipes his eyes quickly, pretending it's the wind. Carter sits next to him without speaking. Finally, Lucas whispers, "Why? Why are you kind to us?" Carter thinks for a long moment. "Because you're someone's sons," he answers softly. "And this war has taken enough from all of us." Lucas turns the wooden horse in his hand, tracing its chipped flank with a shaking thumb. He feels gratitude. He feels guilt. He feels shame. He doesn't know which feeling hurts more. In the days that follow, psychological warfare arrives, not from cruelty, but from compassion. The greatest cruelty, it seems, is to be treated decently. Each act of American kindness cuts deeper than anger ever could, because kindness exposes the lies they were raised on. Letters begin arriving from surviving German relatives, ragged papers, smudged ink, creased like they've been clutched too tightly. One boy, Friedrich, receives a letter saying his home is gone, his mother missing, his father presumed dead. He collapses onto the barn floor, the letter crumpling in his fist. Carter kneels beside him. Friedrich looks up with red-rimmed eyes and whispers, "Why do you treat me better than my own country did?" Carter has no answer. Every day I feel something breaking inside me. Not from the war, from the Americans. They talk to us like humans. They share cigarettes. They help the sick. If they were monsters, I could hate them. If they beat us, I could endure it. But this is unbearable. How do you fight an enemy who refuses to be your enemy? What am I supposed to believe now? Who am I becoming? Arguments break out in the barn. Some claim it's a trick. They want information. Some insist it's propaganda. They want to make us traitors. But others quietly, painfully, begin to admit what they see. These men, they're not devils. These men, they're not who we were taught to fear. These men might even be good. The old world inside them cracks, and through the cracks the truth shines a blinding, uncomfortable light. On the 7th morning, the announcement comes. The prisoners will be moved to a formal camp, safe, fed, treated with dignity until repatriation. Lucas feels his stomach twist. He doesn't know why. The barn has become a strange, fragile island of humanity in the wreckage of the world. Before they leave, Carter hands Lucas a small object wrapped in cloth. Lucas unwraps it slowly. Another wooden horse, carved by Carter himself from a scrap of barnwood. Something inside Lucas breaks wide open. He clutches the new horse to his chest. "Thank you," he whispers. His voice cracks. Carter nods once. His eyes glisten. As the prisoners line up to depart, Lucas looks back at the barn. The place where fear came to die and something terrifyingly tender replaced it. His final diary entry, written on the march. The world is not what I was taught. The enemy is not who I was told. And kindness. Kindness is the most frightening weapon of all, because once you feel it, you can never go back to believing the lies that once made you brave. I don't know what waits for me at home. I don't even know who I am anymore. But I know this. Humanity survived the war, and I found it in an American soldier's hands. As the line of German boys disappears into the mist, Carter watches them go. He raises a hand. Lucas turns back just once and lifts his wooden horse in silent farewell. The wind carries the moment away, but the memory settles deep into the soil, into the barn's splintered beams, into every heart changed by what happened there. A truth whispered softly across a ruined continent. Sometimes the greatest victory is mercy, and sometimes the deepest shock is kindness.